Like Tino Paratori, whose father also drove a cab, the night time is the right time. His casual style almost makes you forget the cab is moving.
What time are you working to?
About 3 in the morning.
What time do you start?
About 3 in the afternoon.
Rather you than me.
Yeah, a bit of a drive. 95 cents, thanks, mate.
Oh, give us 80 cents change, would be great.
Okay, mate. Thanks a lot.
Terrific, have a good night.
Yeah, you too, mate. Look after yourself. Bye-bye. I only took the job on because my father had sort of owned a cab for X amount of years. Anyway, I get a cab licence and it's not as glamorous as I thought it was, you know. So about 6 months, after I started driving, I was prepared to give it the arse and said, no, this is no good for me. I bumped into a mate of mine who I sort of knew from water skiing, and he was driving a cab and was a real star. This is the term that they use in cabs, is he's an ace or he's a star. And he knew everything. The operators were aware that this guy knew what he was doing. And he sort of takes me up there and introduces me to the boys, and they sort of say, oh, what sort of money are you taking, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that much. And he says, oh, Jesus, what do you do with yourself at night, Sit on ranks and wank or something. I said, but once I sort of got to know these guys, and then you start to sort of to do, as we call, the shit work for them, then eventually you get into a clique, where you've only got to, call on a job and the guy knows, and he knows every time you call that you're basically operating for him as well. So, of course, 6 months after that, here's me rubbing my hands together thinking, shit, this is all right. How long has this been going on for?
Are there any other tricks of the trade?
Well, before all these digital systems came out, we worked on the old car phone junior sets, which was an old AWA valve set. And they were pretty slow, but, very convenient, practical type of a radio. But the whole thing was there that you could hot the radio up in the sense that you put stronger valves in it, bigger resistors, bigger output resistors, and they even put these antenna boosters where a mate of mine had put this booster on the radio, and he had the car in his garage with a neon light above it. As soon as he hit the button, he blew the neon light. Guys that have their radios so hot, only because it represented work. Every time they pushed the button, they got a job. That's all it basically boiled down to. They became more professional than the other. But these guys could sort of put out 35, 38 watts, and when they pushed the button down, it would virtually wipe the base station. The base station would be out of action for 20 minutes, half an hour. Quite often they'd change channels for as long as that particular guy was on that channel, jamming the base station out. Mate, I've lost my licence 5 times. I've got a long record, all for speeding offences. But the ridiculous part of it is that, considering that I could sort of do something like about 30 to 40,000 miles a year, which is 10 times more than the normal motorist would do, my accident rate, my speeding rate is not too bad. But I had a judge that sort of said, well, gee, do you think you're a good driver? And I said, I am a terrific driver. Well, how can you account for all of these bookings? I said, well, I just have fast passengers in the cab. Of course, he didn't see the light there, he thought that was, just a typical smart-ass taxi driver answer. But it's true. What sort of a person are you if somebody gets in the cab and starts crying, look, I'm running late, and you don't get involved?
If the owners had their way, cabs would never stop. As it is, the cars get washed in the dead of night when the traffic's at its thinnest. The drivers, with the taxman in mind, reckon $6 an hour is good money. But the hustlers aim for 10. And if you're not careful, the other drivers can whip it off you nearly as quickly as you can make it.
Hello, boys. Playing cards again, eh? Yeah.
What are you been on?
Just working, mate.
Working? You've been waiting for months.
No, I know I haven't been around here for a while, but I know that you're all still here. You haven't missed me that much.
We miss your money, mate.
Is that what it is? Well, mate, I can still send you the money, no trouble.
Yeah, that's all right. Send the money over.
Send the sugar this way.
Yeah,
No
play
problem
this
at
hand.
all.
So you can get me some money.
Get you some money. Mate, I'm fresh. Fresh after a spill.
That was some Pfeiffer, yeah.
Come on, Fatso, got away from it.
How are you, Professor? Long time no see.
Yeah, long time not see, but there's nothing to bludge up
But
here.
every time I drive past you don't see me either.
No, that's right, yeah.
Hey? Too much competition on the road.
No, too much.
Don't want to know me on the road.
What's round, dude, you know.
Just make plenty of money during that road. Hey,
Just fighting along. Yeah, 10, yeah, very smart move.
The taxi industry is a bit like a little United Nations. But, as with all good Australians, the love of the car is paramount.
Turn back. What about you, Professor? You still driving your blue one? Look at it.
Always the blue one, mate. Yeah, it's finished.
I go for the book, mate. Go for the book.
Yeah,
Go for the book. Well, mate, you bless me. I'm playing cards. I'll see you later anyway. Thanks, most cabs you get into, you've got a terrible odour of tobacco. I mean, it's something that you can't do anything about. It's there. So I got into the trip of burning incense. You know, and of course, some of the hilarious things that I've had there. People who get in and they say, oh, this is great, you know, terrific idea. How long has this sort of been going on? Then you get the other person that gets in, marijuana, eh? And the last one that I had was a guy got in and he said, look, he said, can I get high from that stuff?
I'll make it now. I get off on I get by.
Probably the most common passenger that, you know, that you see at the cross, and it's someone that I haven't really mentioned in all of the conversation, is the Navy guy. But they're not dressed as such, you know, they go out in their jeans or whatever it may be, and they're only young kids. One particular time I had three Americans out here on R&R. They told me what they wanted, and of course their hookers was our working girls, our prostitutes. Anyhow, there was one girl in particular used to work out the front of the bourbon and beefsteak bar, so I sort of pulled up there. I said, well, look, I can't organise nothing, but that's the lady. I'll toot her over and you do your own business. He said, fine. So they tooted the girl over and she came over, jumped in the car, and the guy in the back sort of says, how much? The girl says, $100, and I thought it was rather outrageous. And the guy says, God damn it, he says, I don't want to buy the bloody thing, he says, I just want to hire it for half an hour.
Who knocked off Wonder Woman?